What's the purpose of stories? Story is a shape imposed on the shapeless.
Here is an ordinary square.
Whoa, slow down, egghead.
Reality has no one shape. It's endless and formless from our limited perspective. Our lives are all middle. They only have beginnings and endings from outside of our point of view. That's why we use stories to create the illusion of shapes, to create the illusion of control and meaning and form, so that we can have a stable base from which to decide our actions. Why do we need to form the world into a shape? You can't move through the world until you can recognize the parts of it. And you can't recognize the parts of the world until you can organize it into shapes or categories. You can't organize the world into shapes and categories until you can decide which shapes and categories are better or worse. You can't decide which shapes are better or worse until you have a guiding philosophy from which to create a hierarchy of preference, such as love versus hate, fun versus boredom, or pain versus pleasure. You can't have a guiding philosophy until you have a story to follow, because stories are proofs of concept for guiding philosophies. So you can't move through the world, you can't act, you can't even decide how to act until you have a story to follow, a philosophy to act on. Obviously, our lives are stories, but we need external points of reference, that is, references from outside our own heads, our own perception, by which to prioritize our internal stories. We need examples of good and bad, success and failure, happiness and sadness. So we read books, we watch movies, we chat, we joke, we gossip, and we tell stories in a constant exchange of competing and aligning philosophical evidence, like a stock exchange for action plans of life, the results of which we each post, write, speak, or otherwise regurgitate our interpretation of with every trade that follows. Every chat, every interaction, every visit to the movies or swipe of a phone is another moment of trading, of swapping new stories for old, failing stories for successful ones, and trying to hopefully always trade up. So that's the purpose of stories. To come face to face with life and our selection of plans for it. To compare that with the story we're considering in the moment and see what we can do to trade up. But how much of this is conscious? How much can each of us even control our choice of life philosophy? How much of it's imposed on us by society, by our genetics, by our upbringing? Are we the authors of our life stories or merely characters within them? Well, that's another story.